USCHO.com.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Wednesday, October 5th, 2022, where each week we talk to a coach, player, administrator, or journalist about college hockey. This podcast is sponsored by DCU Digital Federal Credit Union. What will DCU mean to you? Find out today by visiting dcu.org. Membership required. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. And Jim, we're talking to a first-year head coach who has a whole lot of hockey experience.
And joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, he is the first-year head coach of the Boston University Terriers. But if you're a hockey fan in college or the NHL, he is no stranger. A 15-year NHL veteran, two-time Stanley Cup champion, national champion at Boston University, Hockey's Player of the Year in 1996, and that's Jay Pandolfo. Sorry to read your resume, but it's a pretty impressive one. So thanks for taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Hey, I'm going to jump into right away just the season, because you're here and you've played a game, and an 8-2 victory last Saturday night. I look at this roster and there's a lot of offensive talent up and down, but the freshmen, you've played 5 freshmen last Saturday, all 5 of them with multi-point games. This has been a freshman class that people have talked about. You were an assistant last year and able to be part of the recruiting process. What do you like about this freshman class?
Yeah, I think all of them are very talented offensively, but they all kind of play the game the right way. They're all competitive. And I've been impressed with how prepared they were coming into the preseason. The 6 freshmen, all 6 of them came in ready to show kind of what they could do. All of them have a lot of confidence, and I think that's helped them along the way.
Specifically, you had great performances. One from Ryan Green, 2 goals and assist. Jeremy Wilmer, a goal and assist, and Lane Hudson, the defenseman, 3 assists. I mean, that's a pretty good pop. You know, when you're going out there in your first game, collegiate game, to me, that kind of says these guys, despite the fact that some of them might not be anywhere near the oldest guy on the ice, they're pretty ready to play college hockey.
Yeah, they've all obviously had great careers up to this point. So I think all of them have come in with confidence. So I think that makes a difference right away. And I think giving them an opportunity right away also builds confidence in their play. I think right from basically day one of camp, they saw that they were going to get an opportunity to play and get an opportunity to contribute, and they've all taken advantage of it.
Obviously, no team is complete unless you have great leadership. And your upper class, I look at some of these names, guys that have been there for 4 years that are ready to lead at this point. What have you seen from your captains and just your upperclassmen in general?
Yeah, they've been huge for this group. I think for them, a lot of them probably could have signed and moved on, but I think a lot of them feel like they have a little bit of unfinished business. I think they feel like they maybe come up short as a team in the last few years, so they're motivated to come back for some of them for their last year and make a difference and have some success. So they've been like this since really the spring, even in the off-ice workouts. Their dedication to the program and to themselves to be ready for this upcoming season has been incredible. And I think we have 17 juniors and seniors. They're all different. They all lead in their own way, but they're all committed to the program. And I think it's made a big difference. Like we just talked about our freshmen, I think it's helped them kind of understand what's expected every day. So they've done a great job of holding each other accountable. And it's been actually, no, I wouldn't say it's always easy, but it's been easy for our coaching staff to get that accountability from within the room. It's not always just coming from us.
As I mentioned, you were there last year as an assistant coach on the bench, so you got to work around these players. And one of those upperclassmen, junior Drew Comesso in net, he has been a goaltender that was highly touted coming in. Maybe he didn't put up the numbers he wanted at BU, but he's proven on the world stage, obviously World Championships, Olympics, World Juniors, all of that sort of stuff, that he has belonged. One of the elite goaltenders in the country. But what have you seen, particularly maybe after last year's Olympics when he came back? Was there anything that changed in his game? Has he continued to mature?
Yeah, he continues to mature all the time. I think he has a calmness to his game. I think that obviously helps when you're a goaltender. I think it makes the team feel good when you know your goaltender that's in there is calm. He never really seems to get rattled, which I think gives us confidence. And I think Drew this summer really made it a point to make sure that he's showing that he is dedicated to this program. He passed up on the World Juniors in the summertime because he wanted to make sure he was 100% all in for our program this season. I think obviously he's done a lot for USA Hockey in the last couple of years, going to the World Championships, going to the World Juniors, going to the Olympics. I just think his focus wanted to be on you, and he's done that. And he's wearing a leather this year. He's wearing an A. He deserves it.
A couple of seasons ago, you made the transition from several years of coaching at the NHL level to the NCAA level. What are some of the major differences in your job, first as an assistant and now as a head coach, between a typical coaching job in the National Hockey League and what you do day to day with the players at the college level?
Yeah, well, I think the biggest difference for me now in this position is there's a lot of stuff you do that doesn't really have anything to do with hockey. Some of the stuff you have to do with the program, but that's part of it. The one thing you have here in college is you have a lot more time to work with the players on a daily basis, on the ice, off the ice. You have a lot more time to do individual video sessions. You have a lot more time to do individual skill sessions on the ice. So there's just a lot more time for development than there is in the National Hockey League. In the National Hockey League, you have 82 games. College, we have 34 games, regular season games. So we have a lot of time to practice. You have a lot of time that you spend with these players. At the NHL level, you have kids that have families, and it's just a different atmosphere. So that's the biggest difference is you're just always around these guys.
With that extra time you have to work with the players, the time they can spend in the weight room and in conditioning and so forth, what's your evaluation of the college game as a path to the NHL?
Yeah, I think it's excellent. I saw it a little bit when I was coaching in the NHL. Just the kids that came out of college just seemed to be a little bit more mature physically. Obviously a little older than a kid that's coming right out of major junior. So I think the college path for development is excellent. I think you get to spend a lot of time just rounding out your game, whether it's on the ice, whether it's off the ice. I think you have a lot of time to develop. You're not just playing, 70, 80 games where you don't have as much time to train off the ice. You're on buses a lot more, I think, in junior hockey. So I think it's nice to get to college and get pretty much all week to train and get better, and then you have the weekend to play your games and hopefully keep getting better every weekend.
Certainly the game has evolved at all levels, but how about comparing the game and the players back in your day as a college player in the early to mid 90s to the players and the game now?
I think there's just the speed and skill is the biggest difference. I think, everyone can skate now. Everyone's got high-end skill. It's just as a whole, the game is just a lot faster, a lot more skilled. And I think the guys are actually smaller now. Like they way less than they did when I was in college. I think all of us back, I think probably our average weight might have been around 190 pounds. I think our team now might be maybe 180. It just seems like guys aren't as big, but they're faster and more skilled.
More with Jay Pandolfo in a moment. USCHO Spotlight is sponsored by DCU, Digital Federal Credit Union. Visit dcu.org.
Know how people say life happens? Well, for me, life was happening, and I needed a new truck. I didn't have time to shop around for a good loan, so I got one from the dealer, higher interest and all. Month after month, those payments were squeezing me. So I went to DCU. They refinanced my loan and helped lower my rate, which lowered my payments. These days, I have more money in my pocket for whatever life throws at me. What will DCU mean to you? Insured by NCUA. Membership required. Visit dcu.org.
We're talking with Jay Pandolfo, first-year head coach at Boston University. And Jay, when I, look at your career, you spent 4 years at Boston University, then went on to a 15-year NHL career. I feel like that would almost never happen these days. You were drafted after your freshman year. The thought of keeping a great player around for 4 years seems almost incomprehensible in today's game. What has changed that makes it so much more appealing? And why did you end up spending 4 years at BU as opposed to leaving early?
Yeah, I think for me at the time, I came in as a 17-year-old. I got drafted after my freshman year. I just felt like I wasn't ready. I mean, there was talk about me signing after my junior year, but I just didn't feel like I was ready. So I wanted to come back, and I had some injuries my junior year, so I wanted to come back my senior year, and I thought it was the best thing for my development. I just think nowadays too, with the rules, with the NHL draft picks, where after 4 years they can go to free agency. So I think teams might, they want to sign these guys. They don't want to lose out on them. I think that's part of it. I think that's a little bit of the issue where you see guys maybe leaving a little earlier than they should. And I think it's just a different mindset. I think guys are in a rush to get to the National Hockey League. And I think if you look at the history of it, I think a lot of guys, if they spend one more year or 2 more years, they're going to be more ready. I just think it's a mindset more than anything else.
I've heard a lot of coaches say that I'd rather see a player spend a year in my locker room than a year on the bus in the AHL. I mean, I think that's the mindset that you're kind of speaking to it. You might go in, but you still might have another year where you're still playing minor league hockey.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think for us too, like we're trying to, obviously this is my first year as a head coach, but hopefully we can convince our players, and I'll never tell a player if he's ready to move on and we feel like he's ready to play in the National Hockey League and has done enough in college to prove that, we will gladly help them and tell them, listen, it's time to go. You've done enough here. But we're hoping that, we can get guys to understand that if they're not ready, 1 more year is only going to help them. And maybe they can jump right from college right to the NHL, which you see happen quite often now. So it's just a matter of making sure these guys are ready and understand that.
Looking ahead to your schedule, you opened last Saturday, as we mentioned, an 8-2 win over Bentley, but you'll play an exhibition game this week, which probably is nice to give your guys a chance to get more into game shape and getting ready for game. But then you're going to take a 2-game trip, Friday, Sunday trip out to Michigan. And that's a pretty vaulted place, just like Boston University. You think of the big teams in college hockey, the power teams, it's usually BU and Michigan are mentioned. What's it going to be like to take that trip early in the season, get the guys away from campus, and to be able to play such a well thought of opponent? Yeah.
Well, first off, I wish we were playing this weekend. I wish we had 2 regular season games. It's funny how you play 1 regular season game and then kind of have a weekend off. So we scheduled exhibition game. I wish we were playing. I just think it's more fun for the guys and you want to get right into it. But moving on to Michigan, I think it's a great test for our team early on in the season in a tough environment against a talented team. So I think it's a kind of measuring stick for us to see where we're at early in the year. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. I think it's going to be a great experience for our players and our program. So I'm really excited for it, and I think our players are as well.
Well, it should be some great hockey a week from now, October 14th and 16th out in Ann Arbor, Michigan, hosting Boston University for 2. Jay Pandolfo, welcome back to the college game. I know people that have followed your career are probably very happy to see you back, behind the Terriers bench now as a head coach. So welcome back, and we'll catch up with you later, but best of luck this season.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks a lot.
That's Boston University head coach Jay Pandolfo. Jay brings not only a wealth of experience as an NHL player and as an assistant coach along the way, but I think it was really key for Boston University to bring back an alumnus who had some success with the program.
Yeah, and that's a program that always seems to turn to alumni. I get that. But Jay Pandolfo really does fit the bill well. Great experience as a player at Boston University. Like he mentioned, 4 great years there, wins the national championship in 95, Hockey's player of the year in 96. That was really the heyday of hockey at BU. When you really think about it, that was the start of it. Maine was kind of on their downward, and that was BU taking over in 94, 96, 97. There was some really good teams, 98 again. I mean, there were some fantastic teams that Jack Parker had in that era. Jay Pandolfo, Chris Drury, they were all a big part of that. Then you add on the fact that he had a 15-year NHL career, Selke finalist, NHL, 2 Stanley Cups with the Devils, gets to end up coaches at a Stanley Cup final with the Boston Bruins. I mean, he has done it all. He's done so much. And now he returns to the college game. And a lot of people might have questioned it, but I think that the thought of coming back to a place where you're comfortable, in a place where you can really, if he wants to stay there and leave a legacy like Jack Parker left, Jay Pandolfo will be given every opportunity. That's my feeling. Albie O'Connell, I think he had a good resume, but I don't think that he was ever the fit that the alumni wanted. Jay Pandolfo really fits that bill. He is the man that they wanted at Boston University. I think that as long as he has success and he enjoys himself, he can stay there to retirement. That's really the way I feel about his position.
And that's a key thing. You cannot do that in the National Hockey League. No matter how much success you have, no matter how good a head coach you are, a down season or two, some fan unrest, maybe a change in the GM, you're not going to last that long. But if you want to spend the next 15, 20 years behind the bench at your alma mater, as long as you produce success, you've got a position that you can have like that.
And there's no reason why, Jay Pandolfo won't produce success. He has a great pipeline back to some of the top teams, especially the junior national team, the U.S. development program. They'll bring in some of the best players. I mean, the one thing you're going to see, and it's been something we've seen at Boston College, we've seen it at Michigan, we've seen it at Boston University, we've seen it at Minnesota. They're always going to be a young team, and that's just part of life. But as he talked about those freshmen jumping in right away and playing, you understand that when these players are coming from high profile programs, you might be young, but at the same time, you're also coming in with a little bit more maturity, a little bit more experience in the moment. And those types of players, despite the fact that sometimes they will have disadvantages, I think of size as one of the biggest ones. Your body's not as mature if you're playing against some 23 and 24-year-old players. But to have that experience can go so far. And I think that is what you'll see from a Jay Pandolfo team going forward. A lot of high-end young talent.
Well, if you're a player who wants to make it at the next level, there's probably no other head coach in college hockey right now that has the playing and NHL coaching resume that Jay Pandolfo has.
No, absolutely not. And that alone should be attractive to a lot of players, parents, agents, advisors, whatever you want to call them. As you're watching the player make a decision, that will be attractive. And he brought with him Kim Bransvold from the Bruins, who's been their skating and skills coach. He's an assistant coach on this team. There's a lot of experience that will be valuable. Brian DeCourt, a longtime goaltending coach in the NHL, he's now coaching the goaltenders at BU. I mean, when you look at that staff up and down, there's no team in this country that even comes close to having seen the NHL experience that you're seeing at Boston University and their coaching staff. I go back to my statement about if you want to stay there the rest of your life, then there's, you probably have the golden ticket right now if you're Jay Pandolfo. But at the same time, you always wonder when you have somebody that's been at the NHL level, tasted that level, do people get itchy and want to leave and go back and maybe, get an NHL head coaching job? If you're a BU alum, BU follower, you hope that's not the case. That is the only caveat. But otherwise, you have a really good coaching staff that most players, most parents, most agents would want to see their players choose.
And this thought just occurred to me when it becomes Beanpot time. Has there ever been a Beanpot where the average amount of experience of the head coaches on the teams will be as low as it is? And Jerry Keefe has got 2 years experience. Teddy Donato is now the dean of the Beanpot.
Every coach, when you really look at it, Ed, though, has either played and won a Beanpot or coached and won a Beanpot. Jerry Keefe did it as an assistant. Teddy Donato did it as a player. Jay did it. Greg Brown did it. I mean, these guys have all been through it, whether they were on the coaching staff or winning. They've all done it. So you might not feel like there's a ton of experience. And when you think of when Jerry and Jack were there not too long ago, you had almost a whole century of experience. Now it might feel a little different, but you've still got guys that have that in their belly, what it's like to play in that Beanpot. It'll still be as special, if not more special, because a lot of these guys have tasted it in more recent times.
Well, we do thank Jay Pandolfo for his time on this episode. Find our podcast at uscho.com/podcast or subscribe on your favorite podcast app. We're available on Apple Podcasts, iHeart, Stitcher, Spreaker, and Spotify. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and this has been USCHO.com Spotlight.